Well, happy Friday, everybody. We've come to the end of our second full week of 2021, and we are in Genesis chapter 10 in our Bible reading plan. I hope you're keeping up with us. And if you've gotten behind, don't beat yourself up. Just pick up with where we are today. Don't worry about it. Just pick up with where we are today, and take some notes in your journal. Genesis chapter 10, and I know this was your favorite chapter that you've read so far in Genesis, isn't it? All of these descendants of Noah's three sons. I bet you got so excited when you read this that you wanted to read it again 2 or 3 times. No, I'm being silly, aren't I? You have genealogies throughout the Bible. And let's just be honest, a lot of times we just don't read them. We skip over them because we find them boring. What's the point? Why are they there? There are reasons they are there or they wouldn't be there. I mean, God's the one who put them there, so they do matter. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the genealogy in chapter 10, but you'll see it come to play later in Genesis. For instance, the Tower of Babel. That area was settled and built by the descendants of Ham through one of his descendants, his sons Cush. Later, you get to Abraham being called to be the father of the Jewish people. He's a descendant of Shem, one of Noah's 3 sons. And of course, you have Canaan, who is a son of Ham, that ended up being in conflict all the time as the Canaanites and so on with the Israelites, the descendants of Shem and Abraham. So there is story behind all of that, and there's some indication of where they settled. Now you can spend a lot of time trying to trace down all these different locations and say, well, this one went here and this one went there. But the thing is, they were nomadic people, so boundaries were always in flux. Not like today. We think of political boundaries for nations. That wasn't the case for the most part back then. Kingdoms changed all the time. They were a nomadic people. But for the most part, you think of it as the descendants of Shem going kind of east over toward Mesopotamia, if you will, and Japheth going kind of north up toward Syria, Asia Minor, modern Turkey, the Baltic area, and Ham, his staying right there in Palestine as the Canaanites, but also pushing down south toward the Negev and over into Egypt and northern Africa and so on. Anyway, that for what that's worth. But here was my takeaway. As I was reading these genealogies, here's what God said to me about me. Okay, it wasn't any of that other stuff. It was this: how important family is. How important family is, and how God can change a family's history too. Family, think about it. They didn't have computers and they didn't have the printing press. They couldn't put all this in books. So there was a tradition among ancient peoples of oral history where they would just tell stories over and over and over and over and over and over to their children, their grandchildren, and everybody memorized it. And so they made a point of people knowing where they came from, what their ancestors were. And it just reminded me that family matters to God. That, the first institution God created was the home, was marriage, was family. So it just reminded me of how important family is and the influence that family has on us and our ancestors. My grandfather, I call him Paul, was a big influence on my life. In many ways, as much as my father. Now, I never knew Paul's father or grandfather or great-grandfather, but you know something? They influenced him. And because they influenced him to become who he was, and then he influenced me, you could say to some extent, his father and grandfather had an influence on my life, even if I can't know exactly what it was. And I'm influencing my kids and my grandkids, and guess what? They will never know my grandfather. He died the summer before I started college. But because he was an influence on my life, and guess what? In some ways, to some extent, he's an influence on my kids and my grandkids' life. Family matters, and we need to be committed to our family. The other thing is that God can change a family history because Shem is in here. We'll talk about that next week. How Well, I'm just going to say that for next week. I'm going to tell you something about Shem and how God changed his family history next week. You can check in for that. What God said to me was, Steve, focus on the importance of family, your immediate family, but also your extended family, because the people that have the most influence on us in our family are those who are in our immediate family. And so even though we're shaped by our family lineage, if you will, that immediate family has a big influence. So work hard at being a good influence on your immediate family and having great relationships with your immediate family, but also make some effort at maintaining some relationships with your extended family too. These genealogies remind me of that. So be a patient, godly, loving, good influence on my immediate family, and be intentional about connecting with my extended family. Reading the genealogies just made me think about family. I hope that you'll take some time this weekend to do something loving and kind and be intentional about it for somebody in your family. Hey, God bless you. I'll see you Sunday for worship at 9 o'clock in our traditional service, 10:30 in our contemporary service. Leanna Crawford will be leading worship this Sunday. And if you can't join us on campus for worship in Sunday school, join us online on our YouTube channel, Facebook page, website. And then next Monday, we'll continue our devotions by looking at chapter 11. And maybe by the time we get to chapter 11 and 12, I'll tell you what the big secret is about Shem and how God can change a family. Hey, God bless you, and I'll see you.